Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to Cooking with Clifton, where today I'll be showing you a recipe I found for apple fritters. To start things off, we'll be blooming 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast in 1 3/4 cups of milk, heated to 110 degrees. Mix in 2 tablespoons of honey and a 1/4 cup of white sugar. And if you aren't familiar with the process of blooming yeast, or maybe you just need a reminder, this step is crucial to make sure we're not dealing with dead yeast. Dead yeast means the dough won't rise. No rising in the dough means it's going to be tough and it's going to suck. All right, you're going to have a bad time. Bloom your yeast beforehand. And this is how it should look after about 10 minutes of just sitting. And also be sure to add 3 eggs, lightly beaten to the bowl with everything else. And it's also important to remember to press the record button before doing so, which I may or may not have done. Anyways, that's purely hypothetical. Anyways, afterwards, you're going to go ahead and add 5 cups of all-purpose flour to your stand mixer bowl. Try and pour it in all at once like they do on TV. Keep trying before eventually just breaking down and taking the bowl off the stand mixer and pouring it in the old-fashioned way. Cut 1 1/2 sticks of room temperature butter into cubes and add to the bowl where it will mix for 2 minutes on low, scraping down the sides with a spatula as needed, before cranking up the speed to medium where it will mix for an additional 6 minutes. Now, when 6 minutes have passed and you're looking at your dough, you'll probably be thinking, this looks too loose, it needs more flour, it's almost too soft. Do not add more flour, alright? 5 cups is more than enough. Scrape down the sides of the bowl one last time, and if you've seen my videos, you probably know the routine by this point. Cover with a clean kitchen towel and let rise at room temperature for 1 hour. And onto the apples for our fritters. Go ahead and peel 4 apples and dice them into small, bite-sized cubes. Then add to a bowl and mix with the juice of 1 lemon. Next, in a large pan, melt half a stick of unsalted butter over medium heat until the butter just begins to bubble. Then add your cubed apples and stir. Once you've seen the butter and apples have begun to mingle and play nice, go ahead and introduce half a cup of brown sugar to the party just to liven things up. Speaking of livening things up, next comes our spices. To the pan, we will add a 1/4 teaspoon of ground cloves, a 1/4 teaspoon of allspice, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and half a teaspoon of ground ginger. I didn't have ground ginger, so I opted to omit it, but if you got it, go ahead and add it. Let me know how it tastes. And right now, our apple filling, while delicious, is a bit too thin. In a separate bowl, mix together a 1/4 cup of warm water with 1 teaspoon of cornstarch, mix together, and pour into the apples to thicken. Mix to combine and let simmer for an additional 1 minute to cook off any cornstarchy flavors that may or may not have arisen, and set aside. And now to deal with our dough. Generously flour a work surface, and I do mean generously. Alright, this doughy gentleman did not come to play games. He's going to be very difficult to work with. Alright, keep an eye on him. Panic internally because this is the first time you're dealing with a dough this sticky, as he gently coax this thing into a large rectangle. Alright? And then pour your cooled apple mixture right on top of that and fold over top. Now, what you're seeing here, right, that's not how it's supposed to look at alright? That's not right. What you're seeing here is the result of my impatience because I didn't let the apples cool completely. Fold the dough onto itself as best as you can 3 times just to get all the apples nice and layered into it. Shape into a crude ball and return to its resting bowl to let rise for another hour. An hour later, we're going to try and numb the pain by turning our dough out onto another generously floured work surface, adding even more flour to the top of our dough before rolling out into a 1-inch thick sheet. Cut out rounds of your dough with a biscuit cutter, though a glass will work just as well. Re-roll any scraps you might have and cut those into more fritters. And next comes the frying. Now, please be careful when you're frying anything. Alright, I don't want to hear about anyone starting any fires. I don't want to hear about anyone's house burning down. I don't want anyone to get hurt. Alright, just don't be careful. You only need to fill up half of the large high-walled cooking pot that you're using, alright? I'm using my Dutch oven, as you can see. And notice, to repeat what I said, only filling it up about halfway. That means there's going to be no overflow when we add our fritters. That means when I add the scooper, the boy that scoops out the fritters, he's not going to cause any overflow. Overflow is bad, okay? Be careful. I used about half a bottle of vegetable oil here, but you may need more or less depending on the size of your pot. And just a quick side note, but I know my oil looks a little funky here. There's nothing wrong with it. I just reused some oil from when my sister made donuts the day before. By the way, my sister cooks as well. She has a YouTube channel, so I'm going to leave the link for that in the description down below. And once our oil has reached a temperature of 375 degrees Fahrenheit, we can go ahead and add our fritters. Let cook for about 90 seconds per side, flipping and being careful not to burn yourself. Now, since my Dutch oven is pretty sizable, I did mine in batches of 3, though if I were to repeat this recipe, I'd probably do them in batches of 2, just to make sure there wasn't any crowding. It all depends on the size of your pot. Just finish in batches until all your fritters are cooked. And I've heard that an apple fritter is only as good as its glaze, which requires we combine 2.5 cups of powdered sugar to a bowl along with a 1/4 cup of milk, whisked until smooth. And I use binging with Babish's recipe, okay? And his recipe called for double glazed apple fritters. I'm going to include the recipe in the description down below. So naturally, I glazed mine twice. And this is optional, all right? I mean, you don't have to glaze your apple fritters twice, or I glazed a couple of them 3 or 4 times. I lost count. And bada bing, bada boom, ring and ding, baby. What do you have here? Yeah, I read your mind. It's because it's apple fritters. Hooray!